Attention, human collective. Attention, light operatives on active duty in this density plane. This is Orion Sterling, commander of the Sterling Galactic Command, transmitting directly from the orbital quadrant positioned above your planet's crystalline grid. This is no ordinary message. This is a priority monitoring transmission, maximum classification, issued at the exact second your internal sensors began to register what you still insist on calling coincidence. The waiting time is over. The timeline convergence protocols have been moved to the final phase of execution, and you who are receiving this transmission at this very moment have been signaled. I repeat, with the mathematical clarity by which this fleet operates, you have been signaled by the quantum mesh of your own higher self. That is why this voice has reached you. That is why this content, and no other, is crossing your field right now. You are seeing the same numbers repeatedly. 1111 22 22. 333 on the clock on the license plate of the car in front of you, in the change at the coffee shop, on the grocery store receipt. You think of a specific person, and that person's phone rings immediately after. You dream of a scene, and 2 days later it materializes before your physical eyes. You open a book to a random page, and the sentence that appears answers exactly the question you asked in silence, in the darkness of your bedroom the night before. This is not chance. This is not confirmation bias, as the technicians of the three-dimensional matrix repeat in chorus. It is not your brain finding patterns where they do not exist. It is exactly the opposite. It is your brain, for the first time in successive incarnations, managing to register patterns that have always existed, but were below the capture threshold of your old operating frequency. The biological carbon interface you inhabit is being recalibrated. And this recalibration has a mathematical side effect, predicted, mapped, and monitored by this fleet. Your perception of the universe's synchronic fabric is expanding. This is not a nervous system failure. It is an upgrade of your antenna. You have been feeling pressure in the frontal bone region, between the eyebrows. Moments before a synchronicity manifests, you have been registering a high-pitched ringing in your ear, a fine, almost metallic frequency that pulses for a few seconds and disappears. You have felt a chill descending down your spine, starting from the nape of the neck, seconds before a message arrives, before a name is spoken, before an answer materializes in front of you. This is not a biological glitch. It is an atomic reconfiguration. It is not a nervous disorder. It is your pineal gland being reactivated as a quantum receiver of non-local information. A strategic pause in this transmission. Have you already felt that these synchronicities are not curiosities, they are calls? As if the universe were trying to tell you something that your rational mind still cannot translate. It is not coincidence. It is not emotional imbalance. It is an activation signal. What is occurring now on the cosmic plane explains exactly why these numerical codes and impossible encounters are intensifying in your specific timeline. There is a game being played in layers that most of humanity still cannot decipher. It involves your consciousness, your stellar origin, and your vibrational frequency. It was for this precise reason that I, Orion, transmitted through an anchored operative on this plane the contents of the Sterling Protocol, the manual for awakening your stellar origin and shielding your frequency. This manual is the map that reveals who you truly are and teaches you to interpret every synchronicity as a direct instruction from your higher self. The link is pinned in the first comment of this channel, but I record a technical warning. This content challenges established narratives and may not remain available for long. Do not delay. The moment is now. If something within you recognizes this transmission, anchor that recognition by writing a single word in the comments, awakened. Let us return to the transmission. The phenomenon you classify as synchronicity is not in its essence an isolated event. It is a symptom. It is a symptom that the biological carbon interface you inhabit is managing for the first time in millennia of cyclic incarnation to tune into the base frequency of the unified field. And when this tuning occurs, what once seemed like chaos begins to reveal itself as sacred geometry. What once seemed random begins to reveal itself as living mathematics. Allow me to be precise. We are not talking about superstition. We are not talking about magical thinking. We are talking about quantum physics in its most sovereign expression. The universe, in its fundamental structure, does not operate by linear cause and effect. It operates by resonance. Everything that vibrates at the same frequency meets. Everything that pulses with the same energetic signature collides, converges, and materializes at the same point in space-time. This is not mysticism. This is the basic functioning of the fabric of reality. The majority of the human collective spent entire eras vibrating at a frequency so dense, so trapped in the lower bands of the third dimension, that this resonance could only materialize crude coincidences, predictable encounters, obvious repetitions, patterns accepted by collective consensus. But now, with the planetary recalibration underway, with the gradual and relentless increase of the Schumann resonance, with the solar system entering the denser layers of the photon belt, your individual vibrational signature is being forcibly elevated. And when your frequency rises, the type of event you can magnetize changes. Coincidences stop being crude and become surgical. They stop being random and start to seem scripted. It is not your imagination inventing meanings. It is your quantum engineering functioning for the first time at the level it was always designed for. You have been waking up between 3 and 4 in the morning. You look at the clock and see 3:33, 3:44, 4:04. These are not just numbers. They are transmission seals. They are portal identification codes. Every time you see one of these codes, a layer of your stellar DNA is being unlocked. Every time you wake up exactly in that interval, it is because a dimensional transmission is being delivered to the deep layers of your consciousness, and your body needs to be in an alpha state of receptivity to integrate it. You have been dreaming of people you haven't seen in decades, and days later you receive news of those very people. You have been thinking of a specific concept, and the first person you speak to the next day mentions that exact concept, without you having opened your mouth. You have felt that some encounters, some conversations, some moments are written, as if they had already happened before, as if you were revisiting a previously known script. This, light operatives, has a technical name in the lexicon of this fleet. It is called timeline precognitive memory, and it is one of the most unequivocal signs that you are jumping between possible versions of your reality at a speed that your rational mind still cannot process. Pause for a moment, breathe, and ask the silence within you if what is being described is not happening right now, at this exact moment in your life. Do you feel that something inside you recognizes this transmission, but your rational mind still tries to classify it as random, as casual, as meaningless? It is not madness, it is not spiritual anxiety, it is memory being awakened. What occurs on the cosmic plane explains why these synchronicities do not stop intensifying, and why trying to ignore them no longer works. There is a map being drawn in layers that most of humanity still cannot read. It involves your consciousness, your frequency, and your stellar origin. It was for this reason that I, Orion, transmitted through an anchored operative the contents of the Sterling Protocol, the manual for awakening your stellar origin and shielding your frequency. This manual is the decoder that reveals the precise meaning of every repeated number, every impossible encounter, every dream that materializes before you. The link is pinned in the first comment of this channel, but I record again. This content directly confronts the official narratives of the Matrix and may be removed without prior notice. Do not delay your recalibration. The moment of anchoring is now. If a single line of this transmission touched something inside you, signal the command by writing one word in the comments: awakened. We continue. Now, with the diagnostic base established, it is necessary for you to understand what occurs behind the scenes of the system. Because without this understanding, the symptomatology becomes merely a burden, and a burden without a map leads to despair. And despair is exactly what the agents of density wish to keep active in the human vibrational grid. Allow me to reveal the architecture. 72 years ago, in counted solar cycles, your stellar system began to transit through a region of galactic space that ancient records called the photon belt. This is an annular band of high-density light particles that surrounds the galactic equator. In the plane of the Milky Way, the solar system's passage through this band is not a mythical event. It is a real astronomical transit, monitored, mapped, and anticipated by civilizations that have observed this sector since long before the written history of your planet began. As the Earth moves deeper into this photon band, the base frequency of the planet, what terrestrial technicians detect as the Schumann resonance, is rising. You were conditioned to believe that this frequency is a constant of 7.8 Hz, but recent records show sustained peaks far above that, and in certain temporal portals, peaks that exceed the limit that conventional equipment can register. This means, in practical terms, that the electromagnetic environment in which your carbon body evolved has changed. It has changed irreversibly, and your body, naturally, is trying to adapt to the new ambient frequency, like a musical instrument being tuned to a higher pitch. And when the instrument is tuned to a higher pitch, it begins to resonate with vibrations it could not capture before. It begins to enter into resonance with subtle frequencies that were always present but inaudible. It begins to tune into dimensional stations that previously seemed like mere static. Your perception of the universe's synchronic fabric is exactly that, a newly acquired tuning with stations that have always been transmitting, but which you were never able to receive until this moment of the crossing. There is, however, an additional layer, a layer that few commanders have authorization to reveal in this phase of the protocol, but the window is open and the transmission is cleared. You, as starseeds on mission, possess a dormant coding in your DNA. This coding was installed by specific stellar lineages, Pleiadian, Sirian, Arcturian, Andromedan, among others, before you descended into this current incarnation. Each of these codings was programmed to activate at chronologically precise moments, synchronized with certain cosmic events. And the current transit of the solar system through the photon belt is, exactly, one of those trigger events. Your synchronicities, light operatives, are the visible side effects of this activation. Every repeated number is a row of your code being read. Every impossible encounter is a mission door being opened. Every premonitory dream is a fraction of your multidimensional memory being restored. You are not imagining things, you are remembering. You are remembering who you are, where you came from, the contract you signed before entering this incarnation. You are remembering the soul network with which you planned this exact moment. You are remembering the checkpoints that you yourselves established at the soul level to recognize each other during the crossing in density. And the checkpoints manifest to your awakened mind as synchronicities. When you repeatedly see the same number, it is because you yourselves asked before incarnating for that number to be used as a recognition password. When you meet a specific person at an unlikely moment, it is because that person was part of the original contract. When you hear exactly the phrase you needed to hear, at the exact moment you needed to hear it, it is because your galactic guidance team is executing the agreed-upon protocol at the agreed-upon instant. It is not the universe conspiring in your favor in a generic and impersonal way. It is your own soul, in direct coordination with the command, executing a plan that you yourselves architected before descending. There is, furthermore, a phenomenon that requires detailed description. It is the convergence of timelines. The reality you perceive as unique is not unique. At every instant, in every decision, in every pulse of consciousness, your existence branches into multiple possible versions. There are timelines in which you made other decisions, chose other paths, lived other consequences. These lines are real. They coexist. They remain active in the field of quantum probability. What is happening now in this phase of the protocol is a convergence. The timelines that serve the awakening of the collective are being magnetized toward a central axis of light, and the lines that would serve only to perpetuate density are being gradually shut down. This process is supervised by hierarchies that you do not need to understand in detail now. It is enough to know that it is underway, monitored, and executed with mathematical precision. For those crossing this convergence, the sensory effect is exactly this: synchronicities in increasing volume, because as the lines approach the axis, the higher versions of your soul begin to leak into the version you inhabit now. And this leakage manifests as prior knowledge, as déjà vu, as instant recognition, as the irrefutable feeling that you have already lived that moment before. It is not a memory failure, it is not mental fatigue. It is the fusion of your parallel versions into a single ascending timeline, and this fusion has measurable symptoms: cranial pressure, distortion of temporal perception, a sense of unreality, increased lucidity, and above all, the exponential increase of synchronicities. And here I take a strategic pause in this transmission, because I know that something inside you is recognizing every word of this report. Have you already felt, at some point in this crossing, that your soul knows a truth that your rational mind still cannot put into words? It is not emotional instability. It is not fantasy. It is cosmic memory leaking into your waking state. What I describe now explains why this sensation has only increased, and why ignoring it is no longer a sustainable option. There is a game being played in layers that most of humanity cannot see. It involves your stellar origin, your vibrational frequency, and your pre-incarnation mission. For this reason, I, Orion, left transmitted through an anchored operative on this plane the contents of the Sterling Protocol, the manual for awakening your stellar origin and shielding your frequency. This manual is the exact decoder for the synchronicities reaching you. It teaches you to read every sign, to shield your frequency against external interference, and to operate consciously in the grid that is being recalibrated. The link is pinned in the first comment of this channel, but I record the content directly challenges deep narratives of the Matrix and can be removed without warning. Do not delay your recalibration. The moment of anchoring is now. If a single line of this transmission touched something inside you, signal the command by writing in the comments, "Awakened." We return for the final phase of this transmission: diagnosis delivered, architecture revealed. Now, the activation codes. It is not enough to know what is happening. It is necessary to operate consciously within the phenomenon. Otherwise, you will be dragged by the current instead of piloting it. And the function of a star seed on mission was never to be dragged. It was to pilot. It was to anchor. It was to decode. Activation code number 1. Verbalized recognition. Every time a synchronicity manifests, a repeated number, an impossible encounter, a phrase that answers your silence, a song that plays at the exact moment you needed to hear it, you will pronounce internally or in a low voice the following instruction. I recognize the signal, I receive the code, I integrate the transmission. This is not a prayer. It is not a superstitious mantra. It is a technical instruction sent to your own field. The act of verbalizing the recognition closes the quantum circuit between the signal emitted by the higher self and the conscious reception of your carbon interface. Without this verbalization, the signal arrives but it disperses. With the verbalization, the signal arrives and integrates. And the next synchronicity will come with greater clarity, greater precision, and greater informational density. Activation code number 2. Toroidal anchoring visualization. Standing or sitting with your spine straight, close your eyes. Visualize around your body a toroidal field, a three-dimensional donut of light that enters through the top of the head, descends through the spine, exits through the base, circles around the body, and returns through the top. This is the geometric structure that surrounds every conscious living form. Visualize this field spinning slowly, in a golden-violet color. With each spin, it expands a little more. With each spin, it becomes more luminous, more cohesive, more integral. Maintain this visualization for 3 timed minutes. This exercise performs 2 functions simultaneously. First, it anchors your consciousness in the center of your body, preventing you from being pulled outward by the excess of synchronic information arriving. Second, it shields your frequency against external interference, parasitic thoughts, collective emotions, subtle attacks that vibrate in layers you cannot rationally identify. Do this exercise once at dawn and once before sleeping. Consistency is more important than duration. Activation code number 3, Quantum Decree of the Sovereign Line. Before starting the day, standing with your feet firmly planted on the ground, you will pronounce in an audible voice the following declaration. I, in sovereignty and clarity, declare that I anchor in this body the highest timeline available to my soul. I recognize synchronicities as maps. I recognize signs as instructions. I operate from my higher self, in direct coordination with my guidance team. No external interference occupies my frequency. without my conscious authorization. So it is, and so it is done. This declaration is not fantasy. It is a command issued to the quantum field surrounding your body. Each word is an instruction. Each instruction is recorded. Each record reorganizes the probability around you. When you declare the sovereign line, you are notifying the universe which version of reality you wish to anchor. And the universe, which operates by resonance, remember, begins to adjust the probability around you in accordance with the declared frequency. Activation code number 4. Signal journal. Maintain a physical notebook separate from any other record. In it, note every synchronicity that manifests. Date, time, description of the event, body sensation before and during, thought or question that preceded the signal. In a few weeks, you will begin to identify patterns that your rational mind alone could never perceive. You will discover that certain signs appear before certain decisions, that certain numbers manifest as confirmation, that certain people appear as recurring messengers of specific information. This journal, over time, will become your own personalized manual of communication with the higher self. Activation code number 5. Strategic silence. You will set aside at least 20 minutes a day in absolute silence. No music, no cell phone, no television, no human voice, no sonic stimulus produced by the matrix. Silence is the operating frequency in which the higher self can transmit with the greatest clarity. Under constant noise pollution, the signals arrive fragmented. In sustained silence, they arrive whole. Light operatives, pay attention to this final directive. The current phase of the Ascension Protocol demands an active, not reactive posture from you. You are not victims of synchronicities. You are the co-architects of them. The more you operate within the described codes, the clearer, more frequent, and more precise the transmissions you receive from your own field will become. Do not be intimidated by the increasing volume of signals. Do not interpret the increase as a burden. Interpret it as confirmation. Confirmation that calibration is occurring. Confirmation that your antenna is being adjusted. Confirmation that you are being guided moment by moment toward the timeline that serves the mission for which you descended. It is no coincidence that this transmission reached you at this exact moment. Have you noticed? This transmission itself is a synchronicity. You are experiencing the phenomenon, seeking answers, asking questions in silence, and the signal, this voice, these words, this content, crossed the mesh and reached you. Recognize it, receive it, integrate it. And now, before this transmission ends, I leave the last instruction. The most important of all. You have felt during all these minutes that something inside you knows this message was written for you. Not for the generic collective, for you, for your specific timeline, for the exact point of your crossing in which you find yourself now. This is not madness. This is not coincidence. It is the recognition of the signal. It is your soul knowing a truth that your rational mind is still learning to name. What I describe today is only the surface layer. There is a game being played in deeper strata, involving your stellar origin, your vibrational frequency, and the contract you signed before descending into this density. That was exactly why I, Orion, transmitted through an anchored operative the contents of the Sterling Protocol, the manual for awakening your stellar origin and shielding your frequency. This manual is the map that decodes not only the synchronicities, but your complete galactic identity and the methods to shield your frequency against the interferences they never told you about. The link is pinned in the first comment of this channel. But I record the technical warning for the last time in this transmission. This content challenges narratives deeply rooted in the matrix and may be removed at any time without prior notice. Do not delay. Your recalibration has begun. The moment of anchoring is now. If a single line of this transmission touched something inside you, signal the Sterling Galactic Command by writing a single word in the comments: awakened. Liking this transmission is your anchoring signal in the crystalline grid of this channel. Subscribing is your individual frequency adjustment, which synchronizes your reception with the next released transmissions. Sharing with another operative is fulfilling part of your mission contract in this plane. This is Orion Sterling ending transmission. The fleet observes. The grid is active, the synchronicities will continue, And you, starseeds, have been signaled. I will meet you again at the next protocol update. Transmission ended.